Hey, welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. You made it. We all made it. Let's go ahead and ground ourselves in our greatness. This is just the practice of cleansing that energy to just reclaim what you are and just reclaim that energy of greatness and really make space for it and call it into our lives. And the only way that we can do that, I suppose there are probably other ways, but I find in my own practices, that's how you get better at anything. Repetition over and over. I never walked into any room and was the best at anything. The only thing that I could ever offer or bring was really my just normal self, and then this like insane work ethic that just promised to keep showing up and keep trying and failing and never stop. And so that's what this practice is about. Continuing to practice grounding yourself in your greatness so that when you are called on, you're ready to answer that call. Right? If you're listening to this podcast, I know that you're about to be called on. So I'm just saying, like, we better be ready to speak to it. So my great thing this morning, hello everyone. I finally felt like I was in a space where I felt strong enough to work out, like a real workout, not just riding my bike and kind of walking and moving my body. And I haven't felt that since June, and so much of this has been low and discovery. And so that sort of had to be tabled in order for me to go to this place. And today really, even though, right, I had plenty of reasons to just be like, nah, my kid woke up, she came downstairs, and I was just like, this is happening. And by some grace of the world and the way that it works, child fell back asleep, which never happens. We are going to mark this on the calendars. And I just very much felt in that space. Now, this is important to my story specifically because so much of my identity is and was and will forever be tied to, this idea that I'm an athlete. And so much of just the base of who I am is tied to that, is tied to body movement, is tied to the expression of self and work. And so tabling that was hard, right? But we had to just remove it in order to experience the full breadth of this work. And today was the first day that energy returned, and I felt present and in a present enough space to really actually work out, like actually move my body with intention. And wow, I mean, I can't even say how life-giving that is to someone with the kind of core identity that I have. And it felt great. And I have been working on cleansing energies and cleansing, my own path and workspaces. And I know that a majority of that work has been letting go of those old energies and, calling the new ones into their full power. So today it happened. We did it. We moved. It wasn't in the miserable place where it always had been. This is like a new creative space where it's not like working and moving our bodies as punishment, as you did bad, now you need to do this. This was like love work. I was so excited to get just weight back on me. I love lifting weights. I don't know why. I don't think that I always did, until I realized how badly I just want to be strong, for my girls, for myself. I'm just saying, like, hauling any sort of child that has fallen asleep out of a car, up a flight of steps, it's hard work, and I want to be able to do that work like well into ages where they shouldn't even still be getting carried upstairs. So part of it. The other part is just there's so much energy exchange there for me that it was really exciting to feel called back to that space and to not go back there until I felt energetically charged and ready, because, I'm still healing from the semblance of a lot of disordered eating, a lot of disordered behaviors around working out that stem from just being an athlete, being a college athlete, being, I don't know, in this world that's set up with these ideals of what the perfect body looks like. And none of us can escape that, unless you have said perfect body, in which case you likely aren't listening to this podcast, and you just aren't listening to this. Probably. No, you probably are. I don't know. Do any of us think that we have the perfect body? I mean, even supermodels, right? There's always this climb to better. There's always this climb to more perfect. And I feel like the closer you are to that perfect body, the further away you are, because the margin gets narrower, the perfection gets narrower. You're never really there. So that's kind of a weird segue into what we're talking about today. But I think most importantly, the lesson learned from this great thing, from the entering back into that space, was allowing time for me to heal and just remove everything, remove all rules, remove all identities, so we could get back to a true space. And that's so much is what we're talking about today. Sometimes it takes the removal of that in order to really dive fully into the exploration of those places that you need to heal from. There's so much pain and just weird energies around food, around moving my body, around all of these things that delve from I wish that it just had stopped at college, right? I wish that that was the entering point, but it's from years and years of being raised and being told things. And, like, if you're healing something that's that deep, and I want you to go that deep, because if we just, if I had just healed what I could see, right in front of me, this college eating disorder, this, sports-minded body type abuse that I endured, if we just stop there, we kind of sometimes pass on, or I find that I passed on really the reason that we got to that place. And so much of that just comes from your childhood. And so when people are talking about going back to your inner child, when people are talking about exploring your childhood, there are specific reasons. And trust me, I used to sit there and read that in a book, or like hear it on a podcast and just be like, oh, okay, go back to my childhood. Okay, that's cute. Totally gonna do that. My favorite color was yellow, and I liked riding bikes. Okay, we're done here, right? No. The reason that we have to go back really is the exploration of probably the root trauma, right? Probably the initial blow that really created the narratives that we kind of live by well into adulthood, well past our childhood, and those either changed and we were able to be convinced otherwise, or they stayed the same and they're still the same narratives that we're telling ourselves today and probably holding us back from being successful. And so we have to go back and understand where that comes from. What is that root trauma? What is that root narrative that's really guiding us now? Because probably right now, the things that we're coming up with aren't true to like the core being of who we are, and we have to heal from those things. So that's my great thing. We are back in Nuss Gym. Welcome back to all things wonderful. And it's not I very much went in with this kind of, I don't know how to explain it, which is probably bad considering I'm a podcast host. I would say just a neutral energy towards what I wanted to accomplish. And really for me, the accomplishment looked like moving my body and feeling good about it, not we're trying to get this size of thighs, we're trying to be this weight, we're trying to do X, Y, and Z. It was just like, what exercise, all the exercises, what do you want to do today? How do you want to show up? How do you want to work? Go. And that was it. And that neutral space just felt really welcoming today. And I've been probably about 6 months of negative energy towards that space. And so it just took me like, let's just walk out of it. We can't be here when we're navigating this right now, right? Because it's going to force us back into this place unless we fully heal that narrative. So go ahead, take time, recognize yourself for your great thing. It doesn't have to be like an hour-long explanation like I just did. It can be like a 10-second thing. Trust me, it's going to be awkward if you're just joining us and you're just starting. It's going to be real weird. I just started it with a group of 12-year-olds, and let me tell you, the discomfort in that space. But we can't grow from there if we're not willing to endure that discomfort. So take time, get uncomfy with it, love it, love the discomfort that you feel here, because that means it definitely is something that you need to work on and keep doing. Boom. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. I know that we're talking about like, how do you navigate lowness? Like, whew, because so often we're just told to avoid that. And hi, I'm going to go ahead and volunteer as tribute. I was shielded from that for so much of my life, like the lows, and not that I couldn't feel that energy. And I think that that's kind of what misserved me. I could always feel that energy. I could feel, the negative, like you could take me out of the room, but I could still feel it through walls. I could feel it. Right. And so it didn't matter. The removal of me from negative situations because I'm positive, because I'm such a light, really didn't save me. And really it set me up in this world where I kind of only expected to experience positive things because I had always been removed from those rooms. And there was always this juxtaposition in the back of my mind where I knew that, bad things existed. But for me, it was like, you just have to stay positive. Just stay positive. Like, we can always floor through a bad thing. It's no big deal. Like, we'll get through this. Just keep going. Just keep staying positive. And I would kind of shield and protect myself from ever truly experiencing the fullness of my emotions one way or the other. And when I just read a quote on this morning, and I didn't know how it was going to play out here, but when you don't allow yourself to experience the fullness of your negative energy or your bad feelings or your sad feelings, right? I'm not even going to call them bad. They're just feelings. There are no good or bad feelings. There are only good and bad when we only operate in the existence of the extremes of one or the other, right? And for me, although culturally accepted, me living in the extremes of this positive energy of only navigating that space meant that I would never fully feel that. And so as we started to explore this space in the podcast and we started to explore dreams that I wanted to have, it was very apparent to me that while I had experienced the fullness of, as full as I could of optimism, I had never allowed myself to fully experience negative feelings. And so I felt this call because I never knew what it was like to actually feel fully happy, to actually feel the fullness of that emotion because, multiple reasons, but mostly because I had never allowed myself to feel fullness of the negative emotions. And when you don't do that, you can't feel really the fullness of anything. And so there was a reason that there was this void, that there was this constant call of like, Hanna, you got to figure this out. You need to keep exploring, and there's something missing. And what was missing was fullness of anything, right? My need to escape places was because I couldn't handle the full emotion of being excited and happy. I couldn't handle it. And that was only because there was no balance. There was no like teeter-totter of sad, happy when it's always happy, right? You kind of can't understand the full breadth of that emotion. And so it becomes really, really your job to continuing even escaping like the full moments where you're supposed to be happy. And so that's very much where I live my life, this constant mode of escape. And I think it was because early on I had a lot of people escaping me from negative situations, and so I just knew how to escape, period. And definitely how to escape negative emotions. Come on. We've been avoiding this our whole life. So the beginning of this year, really 2020, which is the base of the bulk of this work, the beginning of this year, we started to kind of tap our toes into the full exploration of feelings. And part of that was calling feeling back into my life because I had just numbed myself out, especially over, the 5 years prior. It just became so much easier to navigate the world without my feelings at all, because every time that I brought them in, they became so overwhelming and so passionate and so fiery that they were kind of disruptive at times. And by kind of, I mean they definitely were, and at times, I mean every single time. And not only disruptive to me, disruptive to anyone who was kind of in my stratosphere, and hurtful even. So the beginning of this year, we really started to heal and look at that and experience fullness. And somewhere within that work, I start to realize that there are spaces that I just can't be in anymore as I'm trying to navigate and understand what this is. And so we have to remove. And, not everybody's path is going to be like that, where they feel this call to really call themselves back from all energy and sink in and navigate the lowness. But for me, I was so far removed from any emotion at all that I had to really sink into the low work, all the way in, removal from all basically social presence. The only thing that I really kept up was this work, the podcast, and that was just for documenting purposes, so someone doesn't feel alone when they're experiencing their own low journey. But other than that, it was removal of self. It was finding and navigating. And so here's how we kind of survive that moment, or here's what I did. Read whatever it is you're called to read. And we started this podcast with kind of talking about the importance of exploring childhood narratives as they are informing a lot of the decisions that you're making today. And I know that that's so painful, right? And most people's explorations of that space is going to be a lot more painful than mine. So your time navigating this may be longer. And what I'll tell you is there's no exact timeline. Trust me, my husband asks probably every day of okay, so how how long? So what's so what so right? Like the moment when you just love someone and you want what's best for them and you know that this is just a journey that they have to go on. But you also are like, uh, so are you gonna just like sit here and read forever, right? And no one blames him, trust me. Like, I was wondering the same things. How long is this going to last? Are we going to avoid people for the rest of our lives? Are we going to continue just feeling this low, this sad, like this drained? Is this going to last forever? Can someone give me a timeline? And no, they can't. So just promise yourself that there is no timeline. But what I can tell you, having hopefully, right, been on the other side, or never really knowing when you're on the other side, but definitely feeling a conscious energy shift and getting those reads from different people as well. So what I can tell you is, one, there's no timeline. I told you that. Duh. Two, likely the more that you want to avoid it, the more that you probably need to sink deeper into whatever that is. And probably the more space and time that it's going to take up to heal. And, there's this thought that we can just avoid it, right? Because we always think that we can. That's kind of what I had been telling myself all of the years leading up to the start of this work. Like, no, you have dreams. You have aspirations. Like, come, nah, that's not you. You can avoid those things. It's not you. And I find generally the things that glare up or that just like take a certain part of the energy, like anytime that someone would talk about living their dreams, all of a sudden there would just be like this hate, anger energy, this spiteful, angry, like, oh yeah, so good. She was funny though. She was kind of funny. I like how she would zing people. I'm just saying. I got to figure out how to find that humor again. Maybe it's come back. But that would like well up and it would turn into an attack on someone's dreams. I wanted to share something today because it was like anyone who just hates on someone's aspirations or like makes someone feel stupid for feeling excited about something is the worst kind of person. And I wanted to share it, but what I realized is like I was that person for a lot of people. And it didn't come from me not believing in them or me thinking that it was probably even stupid. I probably actually thought it was really cool. It literally came from all of this healing that I needed to do with my own dream work, with my own dream ability, with healing from the trauma of the death of my own dream, right? And so that can show up and manifest in a lot of different ways. For me, it manifested in a whole lot of hateful anger. Even though it was funny, it was definitely hateful, but not hateful towards anyone, really hateful towards my own experience and hateful towards my own existence of where I got in life, right? Not living my own dreams, unfortunately, and not knowing what they were even, because I was sort of in this place where I had done it. And, do you even deserve to give yourself permission to dream some more if you already reached a lot of dreams? Like, how selfish, right? To keep aspiring for more, you already made it in a lot of people's minds. And I think that's really the basis of all of this work. Are you willing to go back and heal enough to show up as the person you know you're made to be? Right? Like, you have to explore those painful places. I know. As an eternal optimist, trust me. Listen. I know we want to avoid them, even if you're not an optimist. Like, nope, I'm not ready. I don't want to. I can't survive it. I know that it's going to be too low. I know that it's going to take me to this place, but like, there's something about re-experiencing that, in your innocence as a child, as someone who didn't know better. Like the death of my dream happening when I was 18, like that's not even a place where someone can fully experience and understand and navigate that moment. And, so much of my support system was gone right in that moment that maybe I would have been able to heal and recover from it had I had that support, but I just didn't in that moment. And I was very blessed to have someone there that called me back, that called to arms this person. But it didn't come without definite sacrifice of the person that I knew to be. But basically the message that was given was like, get past it. It can't touch you if you never let it. And I think it's important to let those things touch you again. Right? And so much of that touch, I promise you, it is going to be painful. Like I can remember myself with my car. It had run out of gas. I had no one to call because it was just a moment. And I remember just being in that parking lot and just being like, are we going to stay here forever? No. And choosing to not be a victim at that point and choosing to just forge my own path and make my own way right in that moment. But what I didn't do was heal and understand that even though these were the cards that I had been dealt, I could still aspire to be something, right? I could still write dreams down. I didn't just have to write the ones that were acceptable in that moment. I could still dream big even in that place. And, going back and retracing those steps and fully understanding that that moment was hugely impactful and took me down this adult journey. That really wasn't the core trauma that was navigating this space for me. Really, the core trauma happened when I was 7. And so I know that it's hard and it's super scary, and we all want to avoid that work. And as someone who has come back and healed some of those energies, you get out. You do. It definitely is low for a while. I can't promise you how low. I can just tell you to commit to the lowness, commit to the sad, to the lonely, to the, traumatizing as you go through that and dig through that. Just commit there to whatever time it needs to be, and then just start listening, because your body and your mind, they'll tell you, they'll inform you when you're past this moment, when you can start rising up again, when you can start coming back. And I've felt that build over the last couple of months, and now I know that there have been some false alarms. Trust, okay? I've thought that we've been there before, and maybe we still aren't. But I think we're getting closer. I never know if we're fully there. We'll never be fully there. But the main thing that I want to get through to you today is just like commit to that healing, whatever that is. Commit to it, whatever time it takes. Just be there, be present. I think the more present you are for that work, even if it's just like one day a week that you're committing to it, even if it's just one weekend a month or whatever, 1 hour, one day, like go there, fully go there, fully allow yourself to explore that space and give yourself what it needs. Fuzzy blankets, like all the comfort items that you could ever want and need, like have them around as lifelines as you explore that space. Just know that it's going to be called back in through this healing process, and you'll get through it. I promise. And anytime that you're working with mental health, trauma experiences, make sure that you're consulting your healthcare providers, mental health counselors to help you process through some of this stuff, because some of it's deep and heavy and you can't do it alone. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.